This video is brought to you by Brilliant. For the past few years, Armenia and Azerbaijan have been fighting over a disputed bit of land called Nagorno-Karabakh. As the larger and wealthier country, Azerbaijan always had the upper hand. But with Armenia's main security partner, Russia, busy in Ukraine, Azerbaijan has really started tightening the screws. For the past few months, Azeri forces have essentially sieged the territory, cutting off the main road into Nagorno-Karabakh, and in the last couple of days, thousands of Azeri troops have been deployed on the Armenia-Azerbaijan border, sparking some anxiety about the prospect of a full-scale invasion. So in this video, we're going to have a look at the history of Nagorno-Karabakh, why the two countries are fighting, and why Azerbaijan will probably end up regaining control of Nagorno-Karabakh in the near future. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Let's start with a bit of context. The Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict revolves around a contested region which Azerbaijan calls Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia calls Artsakh. The history of Nagorno-Karabakh is complicated, but the TLDR is that after the Soviet Union collapsed, Nagorno-Karabakh, which is mostly populated by ethnic Armenians, held a referendum on joining Armenia, sparking a full-on war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Armenia essentially won the war, taking control of Nagorno-Karabakh and much of Azerbaijan. In 1994, Russia negotiated a ceasefire known as the Bishkek Protocol, which technically left Nagorno-Karabakh as an independent enclave controlled by the self-proclaimed government of the Republic of Artsakh, but it's basically just been a part of Armenia ever since. Unfortunately for Armenia, in the years since, the balance of power has tipped into Azerbaijan's favour. Over time, Azerbaijan has become a bigger and richer country relative to Armenia, largely because Azerbaijan has a lucrative oil and gas industry, which brings in tens of billions of dollars every year and accounts for 60% of government revenue, but also because Azerbaijan's population has been growing steadily, while Armenia's actually peaked in 1991. In 1991, when the first post-Soviet war over Nagorno-Karabakh kicked off, Azerbaijan's population was roughly twice that of Armenia's. Today, it's about 4 times as big. This is why Azerbaijan has a GDP roughly 3 times as big as that of Armenia, and a military budget nearly 5 times as large. To give you a sense of quite how large Azerbaijan's military advantage is here, Azerbaijan has twice as many tanks, 3 times as many armoured vehicles, and 4 times as much artillery, according to data from the Global Firepower Index. Anyway, there have been multiple border skirmishes over the years, but this story really begins in 2020, when Azerbaijan staged essentially a full-on invasion. Armenia was only saved by an intervention from Russia, Armenia's main security partner and a fellow member of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which includes a mutual defense clause. At this point, it became clear that Russia's security alliance with Armenia was the only thing stopping Azerbaijan from all-out war. This is why, in September of last year, just a few days after the Ukrainian counteroffensive in Kharkiv, Azerbaijani troops attacked Armenia again, betting that Russia would be too busy in Ukraine to intervene as it did in 2020. And, well, this is exactly what happened. Russia didn't intervene, despite the fact they were obliged to via the CSTO. This was largely because Russia was too busy in Ukraine, but also because Turkey is a keen supporter of Azerbaijan, and Russia has become increasingly reliant on Turkey since the invasion. So Putin probably didn't want to upset Erdogan. After Azerbaijan occupied a bit of territory inside the Armenian border, the fighting stopped. But a few months later, Azeri forces occupied the Lakin Corridor, a mountainous road connecting Nagorno-Karabakh to the rest of Armenia. It was previously controlled by Russian peacekeeping troops, but they left in August, presumably to join the Russian army in Ukraine. This amounts to a de facto siege of the 100,000 or so Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh, who have complained of food, fuel and medicine shortages. Since then, the US, EU and Russia have all tried to get the two sides to negotiate a compromise, but to no avail. According to reports, as well as the obvious issue of Nagorno-Karabakh, there are 2 other issues being discussed. First, Armenia wants Azerbaijan to withdraw its troops from other parts of Armenia, and second, Azerbaijan wants better access to the Zangezur corridor, a strip of land running between Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan along the Armenia-Iran border. Azerbaijan claims that Armenia promised them better access to the corridor as part of the peace agreement in 2020, but Armenia disputes this and claims that this would be a violation of Armenian sovereignty. Unfortunately, these efforts haven't come to much, and in the past few days, Azerbaijan has started deploying more and more troops along the border and around Nagorno-Karabakh, sparking anxiety in Armenia and the wider international community that Azerbaijan could be about to stage a full-scale invasion. We're aware that media can sometimes be too keen to draw comparisons to Ukraine at the moment, but there really are some quite conspicuous parallels here. As well as the troop buildup, Azerbaijan has started talking about Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh as equal citizens of Azerbaijan that need to be reintegrated. And Azerbaijan has even created its own version of Russia's Z symbol, an upside-down A which has started appearing on Azeri military vehicles. Now, at the time of writing, it's not clear that Azerbaijan is actually going to invade. This might be part of their ongoing pressure campaign, along with the siege of Nagorno-Karabakh, to coerce the Armenians into willingly giving up the territory. However, an invasion is plausible, for the simple reason that, well, Azerbaijan doesn't have much incentive to negotiate anymore. Armenia doesn't look like it's going to voluntarily give up Nagorno-Karabakh, and an invasion would probably be successful. After all, Azerbaijan has a way bigger army than Armenia, and without Russia, Armenia doesn't have any reliable security partners. Armenia has tried to pivot towards the West recently by renouncing its strategic reliance on Russia as, quote, a mistake, sending arms to Ukraine and announcing joint military exercises with 85 US personnel beginning on Monday. But it's been too little too late. Armenia's only other significant potential ally is Iran, which has supported Armenia in the past, but it's not clear whether Iran would actually get involved in a full-on war. Unlike Russia, Iran has no formal mutual defense agreement with Armenia, and while Iran has pushed back against Azerbaijan's designs on the Zangezur corridor, Iran considers Nagorno-Karabakh to be part of Azerbaijan. By the way, this is another reason Azerbaijan is so hawkish about Nagorno-Karabakh. It's recognised by most of the international community as part of Azerbaijan, so Azerbaijan is probably pretty confident that retaking control of the territory won't incur too much diplomatic pushback. All in all, it's now hard to see how this doesn't end with Azerbaijan retaking control of Nagorno-Karabakh, whether by force or coercion. Now, you just spent around 8 minutes watching a video to help you learn about the world around you, and that feels good, right? Well, that's the feeling you get from spending time learning and bettering yourself. And if you want to do this more, then we have good news. Long-term supporter of the channel, Brilliant, are giving the first 200 people who sign up using our link 20% off their annual premium subscription. Brilliant is an interactive online learning platform which is full of all kinds of courses which can help you improve your career and further improve your understanding of the world. They have more than 100 courses on everything from predicting with probability to how technology works to the concept of infinity. And these may sound like topics that you need to dedicate a lot of your time to, but you really don't. You can master big concepts in as little as 15 minutes a day, and you can do this anywhere, anytime. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and thanks again to Brilliant for supporting TLDR.